Good evening, beautiful people. Let's get right into it. A former treasurer of the Michigan Democratic Party has now been criminally charged with embezzlement and fraud, allegedly misusing funds while serving as a court-appointed conservator for a vulnerable elderly woman. This scandal ties into a broader pattern that we've seen with friends, donors, and allies connected to Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Michigan's Democratic leadership. Welcome to Nellie Miranda. As always, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Okay, according to court documents, Tracy Michelle Cornack, the former Michigan Democratic Party treasurer, now faces 3 felony charges, including embezzlement from a vulnerable adult, additional counts of embezzlement, and false pretenses, all tied to her conduct as a conservator for an elderly woman named Rosalind Byrd, who was in poor health at the time. Prosecutors allege Cornack misused significant funds from Byrd's accounts. Money that was supposed to protect and provide for a vulnerable adult under her care was used for herself. The most serious charge alone carries up to 15 years in prison if convicted.
Democratic Party treasurer is accused of stealing upwards of $123,000 while acting as a woman's conservator.
Tracy Cornack of Comstock Park was arraigned today on 3 criminal counts. Authorities allege the embezzlement happened from 2020 to 2023, while the victim, Rosalind Byrd, was a resident at an assisted living facility near Grand Rapids. Byrd has since died.
The Michigan House Oversight Committee previously alleged Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel prematurely closed an investigation into Cornack to protect her. Nessel's office says that investigation was into an insurance fraud allegation and that it was closed in part due to lack of cooperation from the person who filed the complaint.
Cornack served on Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel's transition team after Nessel's election in 2018. She also gave money to Democratic campaigns, including to groups associated with Whitmer. And critically, earlier investigations into allegations against Cornack did not lead to charges until after significant Republican pressure. That raises legitimate questions that many people have. Did political connections influence how this case was handled? Were ethical firewalls properly respected? And if so, why did it take years for charges to be filed?
I've spent my career defending the rights of our most vulnerable.
I've always said Attorney General Dana Nessel's actions are contemptible, but now it's official.
And I am not a judge, but this certainly seems like a dereliction of duty with a very vulnerable adult.
After violating not 1, but 2 conflict of interest ethical firewalls,
the motion prevails.
The Michigan House Oversight Committee held her in contempt and issued her office subpoenas for refusing to cooperate. She didn't even bother to show up to the hearing, which had an empty chair with her nameplate. Why? Because one case involves her friend, Tracy Cornack, who's accused of ripping off an old lady while in charge of her finances.
The Attorney General claims that she has no knowledge of this case because of the firewall, and that's why she's not here today. That is a clear lie by our Attorney General.
Emails show Nessel personally intervened, letting Cornack off the hook to continue doing it.
It seems that instead of protecting Mrs. Byrd, Dana Nessel was protecting Cornack.
The other case involved wrongdoing by none other than Nessel's wife, Elena McGuire. In that one, Nessel actually called Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson to take back a criminal referral, which isn't legal, and Benson agreed to do it.
That's a collusive act. That's one department head calling the other department head saying, hey, I need your department to act the way I want, so potentially my wife doesn't get prosecuted.
This is one Tuesday I'm never going to forget.
State GOP lawmakers have been vocal. They argue that Cornack's ties to the Democratic establishment, especially Attorney General Nessel, delayed accountability. From testimony gathered by the Michigan House Oversight Committee, evidence suggests that hundreds of thousands of dollars in questionable transfers occurred while the AG office was allegedly slow to act. Committee members say that those actions and inactions show a clear breakdown of ethical standards. Let's pause and think about this for a second. When someone is appointed as a conservator, they are entrusted with someone else's most personal and financial decisions, often for someone who cannot protect themselves. That is a sacred responsibility and should be looked at as such. And yet here we have allegations of exploitation. by someone deeply involved in Democratic politics. It's not a one-off mistake, it appears to be a pattern. When powerful operatives connected to political machines facing ethics or legal scrutiny, sometimes with delayed accountability or no accountability at all.
We begin at 5 o'clock with new details about thousands of dollars embezzled from vulnerable adults in Kent County.
Investigators say Tracy Cornack and Derek Plum used their portions of power and their positions to separately exploit 4 vulnerable women.
13 Your Science Callie Lichter looked into both of these cases. And Callie, can you tell us what you found?
Elena, Juliet, only 1 out of 14 cases of elder abuse are reported, according to the county prosecutor, making it one of the least reported crimes they deal with. 2 people in Kent County are facing lengthy prison stays, accused of exploiting the vulnerable people they were meant to protect in 2 unrelated cases. Detectives say Derek Plum abused his position as a state adult protective services investigator to move deeds from vulnerable adults to his name. Investigators say former Michigan Democratic Party treasurer Tracy Cornack embezzled thousands from a woman she acted as a conservator for. According to court documents, back in August, a woman called Kent County Sheriff's detectives to report a fraudulent Lady Bird deed had been taken out on her house and was deeded to her APS investigator Derek Plum. A Lady Bird deed transfers a house deed to a beneficiary when an owner dies. Through an investigation, detectives found 2 other houses that were deeded to Plum and his company Blackstone AP LLC. When interviewing Plum, he allegedly admitted to taking advantage of the situation, possibly forging one woman's name and forging the notary's name and using a stamp without his knowledge. In her unrelated case, Cornack's charges stem from a conservatorship involving Rosalie Bird, a resident of the Heather Hills Assisted Living Facility in Grand Rapids, according to court documents. The docs outline a series of allegations regarding her conservatorship of Bird, including falsely invoicing conservator fees and embezzling money from Bird's accounts. The state's attorney general's office investigated the embezzlement in 2022, but dropped the case. Cornack was part of AG Dana Nessel's 2018 transition team. Plum is facing 1 count of embezzling more than $100,000 and 4 counts of forgery of a document affecting real property, which could land him up to 20 years in prison. Cornack is facing 3 counts, embezzling $50,000 to $100,000 from a vulnerable adult, and 2 counts of embezzling $1,000 to $20,000 from a vulnerable adult, which could land her up to 15 years in prison.
So what does this say about Gretchen Whitmer's circle? Because we've recently told you about Dr. Nkechi Eze, a Whitmer appointee involved in daycare fraud.
That's allegedly thanks to this woman, ELNC's founder and CEO, Dr. Nkechi Eze.
It's really been an amazing 2 years, like you said.
The lawsuit filed last week accuses Eze of funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars from ELNC into her pockets and those of friends and family. Also accused, the agency's former director of finance and administration, Sharon Killebrew, who, according to the suit, received $1 million over several years. She denies any wrongdoing.
Never. I didn't steal anything.
The agency's attorneys said Killebrew and Eze masterminded an elaborate accounting scheme using a web of interrelated organizations to hide their financial misdeeds from the boards, employees, and funders. Alleged fraud that now jeopardizes programming for children and families in West Michigan who depend on the early care and education programs ELNC funds.
We've told you about Faye Baydoun and the alleged embezzlement of $20 million. Here's a clip on that.
Deeper into it.
Yeah, so we've been following this grant given to Faye Baydoun, a donor and appointee of Governor Gretchen Whitmer, for a little more than 2 years. It was given in the 2022 budget. And throughout that time, we've heard repeatedly from the MEDC and from the governor's office that they had nothing to do with this, that they directed a lot of questions to Wentworth. The MEDC said, look, we're just essentially a pass-through for this money, and we have to abide by the law. And what we reported yesterday is that they were, in fact, aware of this project, of Faye Baydoun's desire to do a program like this for months ahead of time. She met several times with the MEDC about this idea. It was for an international business accelerator, and she received $20 million through the budget. But she had approached the MEDC months ahead of time, pitching the same idea. And in fact, telling one of Governor Gretchen Whitmer's top staffers that she had secured a nod of approval from the MEDC for this money. So it appears that there's a long paper trail showing the MEDC and the governor knew about this grant, and they also created a grant program within the governor's own executive recommendation that very closely mirrors what Faye Baydoun eventually received.
So again, it appears to be a consistent pattern of Democrats in power facing financial or ethical controversies. The bottom line is, when someone in public life is accused of exploiting the vulnerable, it demands attention. But when there are political connections to those in power, transparency and accountability become even more essential, and we should not accept any system where political proximity shows wrongdoing or slows justice. So what do you think? At what point does a pattern become a problem and not a coincidence? Let me know in the comments, and if you got any value from this video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. And if you missed the breakdown I did on Gretchen Whitmer's appointee, Dr. Nkechi Eze, who pleaded guilty to stealing from daycare funds, I'll link that video right above. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.